great nations, first, before becoming great, they are someone's dream. They're always dreamers, poets maybe, but idealists who dream of big things. And so therefore, first, there's this dream. And then the nation, if it's lucky, gets close to the dream.
Time magazine called him the long shot, a rock star cricketer who became prime minister. He now leads a nation of 220 million facing the biggest challenges in modern times. For over half a century, the leader of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has been climbing steep mountains. His struggles in life have helped him scale impossible heights. Now, his journey has reached a tipping point. I flew from New York to Islamabad to interview Prime Minister Khan. Logi is the nickname that Imran Khan gave me when I was a struggling cricketer in college. I was studying medicine and playing cricket for Lahore Gymkhana. Back in 1985, I was selected to tour Bangladesh with the Pakistan team under Imran Khan's leadership. That's when this journey began.
Hello, Logi. क्या हाल है तुम्हारा? कैसे हो? आओ बैठो। किस वक्त आए थे?
If you live in the West, most international news stories of Pakistan seem to revolve around terrorism and turmoil. But for 10 million overseas Pakistanis like myself, Pakistan is a spiritual homeland, a place of family, music and cricket, rich history, and great friends. I decided to ask Prime Minister Imran Khan his perspective of the country he leads. Pakistan is the second youngest population, fifth most populous nation, and a nuclear state. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time, for this important interview. You're the only leader in the world who's used the phrase spiritual democracy. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that what is spiritual, first of all, the way I understand spiritual is all the messengers of God who all came with a certain message. And basically every human society, if you look at what they consider sacred, those values are the same, which is again, being just and being humane. Because the animal kingdom is not just or humane. It's survival of the fittest and its might is right. So what I feel that this is what distinguishes us. Great societies are distinguished by that. And these are spiritual values, both of them, just and being humane, or insaniyat and insaf. These two are spiritual values. So when you have a democracy, if it's based on these two great values, it is spiritual. Let me go a bit further. So I would describe a spiritual democracy, a democracy that will take decisions in favor of human beings rather than commercial interests. So for instance, this whole ecological movement, this environmental degradation, this climate change, this is all because of commercial interest superseding the interest of humanity. So, to give you the saying of our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, live in this world as if you will live for 1,000 years. So in other words, you would think about all those generations who will come 1,000 years later. Whatever you do today, what impact will it have on their lives? And then he said, live for the next world as if you die tomorrow, so you live a very moral life.
Prime Minister, you'd remember, I'm taking you back 35 years. You were in the last decade of your career as a cricketer. For Imran Khan, the game of cricket has provided many metaphors for life. Most importantly, learning from failure and never giving up.
Things now falling apart for Pakistan. It was always going to be an uphill battle. It's now become an impossible target.
What I want to ask you is that this must mean extreme levels of stress, mental stress, physical stress. What was your coping mechanism at that time?
Look, no one is born with the ability to take stress. Taking stress, basically it's mental strength. So the mind is like everything the Almighty has made us. I mean, if you put stress on your muscles there, they get stronger. Mind is that part of God's gift to a human being that the more you take pressure, the stronger it gets. So the thing is, if you do not capitulate to pressure, or was it Nietzsche who said, what doesn't kill you strengthens you? So the more you resist, the stronger you get. So when I started playing cricket, I wasn't good under pressure like everyone else. Used to panic under pressure.
I don't think he honestly knew himself quite what potential he had.
The other thing that I knew about Imran from playing against him was that he had terrific fighting spirit.
But gradually, because I did not give up, I used to fight more than others. I would fight to the last ball. I got mentally stronger than others. And so, in these critical situations which you mentioned, everything eventually boils down to the mind.
He had that bearing on the field, which was very aristocratic and which made him look like a born leader.
He doesn't suffer fools gladly. He's the type of guy that I suppose if you're doing a job, you must do it properly.
I've always felt, that without Imran, Pakistan would struggle.
Do you have that resilience not to give up? So first you give up in the mind before you lose on the ground. And conversely, if you do not give up in your mind, you can actually win from impossible situations. So the key is that you train your mind to keep resisting, not giving up, and you get stronger and stronger. Of course, connected to that is the ability to analyze your mistakes. You have to be able to analyze where you're going wrong. Because when you have a setback, if you can analyze where you went wrong, you will always improve. Every setback will become an opportunity for you to get better and improve.
And that's taken. Jeffrey Marsh getting the edge to the in-swinger. So Pakistan, just when they needed wickets, have picked them up. One to the leggy, and now one to the skipper. Gooch, but it's way over his head and well back into the members.
drive. That's down the ground. That's knocked away by Campbell. They're going through to the single. That's 100 for Imran. Well played. A superb captain's knock.
On his bowling. Botham's gone. Beaten there with a fine delivery. A little bit of extra pace too. Seems to have been beaten by the pace.
So to England. That's up in the air. He's getting under it. This could be victory. It is. Pakistan win the World Cup. A magnificent performance in front of 87,000 people. Imran Khan has led his side to victory. What a great victory.
Prime Minister, that strengthening of the mental muscle in cricket, and then you took on a huge, challenge with the cancer hospital, and where many experts, didn't believe that anybody could build that hospital in Pakistan. And then even a bigger challenge, 22 years before you became Prime Minister. So all of that mental flexing of muscle, does any of that impact on the politics?
Look, a human being is a sum of all his experiences.
In the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of summer in Pakistan, it is very hot and nobody was willing to come out of their homes. So he'd come to my younger sister and myself and say, could you bowl to me?
There were all sorts of ages, cousins who were in the late 20s to boys barely 6 or 7 years old. So all of us used to get together and sporting activities used to take place.
So whatever you go through, from school what you learn, it helps you in university. University helps you in work after that. So everything in life is a stepping stone, provided you treat it as a stepping stone.
A lot of cricketers simply walk into the dressing room, play their cricket and go home, and there's no sort of desire to sort of expand one's horizons. But I thought that Imran was pretty special in so much as he had a view on more than just cricket, on all sorts of aspects of life.
The problem with human beings is that we somewhere along the line, we stay in our comfort zone and we stop striving. And that is the beginning of your decline. Because there's no such thing as a plateau in a human being. It's either you're going up or you're going down. The more you challenge yourself, the stronger you will get. Each experience equips you to deal with the next experience. And that's what progress is in a human being, in a society. If, for instance, all the struggle I learned on the cricket field, had I after cricket just done cricket work, commentary, all that, that would have meant I would have capped the limit of my potential. That would have meant that I would then have taken the easy option, my comfort zone. And that's what a lot of sportsmen do. Because they can actually, what they learn in sports, because they struggle at such a high level, it equips them to actually go into any other field.
The big thing about him, his captaincy, is that he's actually part of the team, but at the same time, he keeps himself distant from it. He's able to make the right moves and have the authority, and that is a very, very big thing.
More than 30 years ago, the last time I interviewed on camera, I asked you two questions. It was, will you ever go into politics, and will you ever get married? And both your answers were...
At this moment, I have no designs at all to enter politics. I feel that I could achieve much more for Pakistan as I am. Also, I feel that people have different roles in life. Not everyone should become a prime minister and then he can do something for the society.
My mother was also very keen to see Imran married, settle down and have children. And at one point, she nearly convinced him. She told him she'd found a girl for him and that she was not going to take no for an answer. So she used all her motherly emotional blackmail on him and he agreed. But the next morning, he came and told her that there's no way I'm going to get married because he said, I had a nightmare last night in which I was married and all I saw was black. And if I get married, it's going to be a disaster. And he convinced her that he shouldn't be married.
I've never felt that I could do justice to marriage, because I felt that there were so many other things in my life. There was always so much happening that I never felt that I would be able to do justice, A, to my wife, and secondly, and more importantly, to my children.
Fast forward more than 30 years, you're the Prime Minister of Pakistan and you have been married. So what's the learning behind that?
See, human beings evolve. So we are when you make a statement at a certain point in time, you don't know, there are all sorts of other circumstances changing around you.
Do you see this marriage as a turning away from the life that you may have led in other parts of the world?
You mean a playboy? Is that what
You said it. Tell me, does the word love play a part in what has brought you together?
I hope so.
I'll just say that in our culture, a public show of affection and publicly talking about these things is sort of not really considered very common. I think it's between two people, because you see in Hollywood people sort of proclaiming love, and this huge love affair, and 2 years later they are divorced.
Throughout his career, he's had his critics.
He's a middle-aged man who has decided to tie the knot with a girl half his age who is British, and he's telling us what we ought to do and how we ought to live.
So in my case, it was my spiritual journey which started really just before I finished cricket. So 3 or 4 years before I left cricket, I was already on a spiritual journey. I had moved from a non-spiritual life. I was then taking this journey, which is, which is limitless. Spirituality is limitless.
Some of it must be genuine. It's as genuine as a confused person's spiritual awakening can be. He stands on a high pedestal and lectures us about how we ought to live and how we ought to be proud of our culture and our roots and our heritage, and we are. We know who we are. It's he who doesn't know who he is.
I thought I was quite advanced compared to other people, but it's only until I met my wife, Bushra Begum, that I realized that I was actually nowhere. That it had levels of spirituality, has levels which someone like me was only scratching the surface. So I had just started my journey. And what did that spiritual journey do? Rather than my life being about myself, and which is what normally it is, if it's not a spiritual life, then you really think of yourself. But then it's me and myself.
Why are you so famous?
I don't know.
My mother and Imran had a very special relationship. He was very close to her and a very considerate son. When she developed cancer, he was the only one who knew that she was terminally ill. He never told any of the sisters. He protected us from the information. We all saw her suffer a lot of pain before she died. But he was the one, on the day of her death, he said, I will make a cancer hospital in her memory.
I suppose it was the most painful experience of my life, because someone that close to you and dying of cancer, which is probably one of the worst ways anyone can die. It touched me and it left I suppose it was a watershed in my life in terms of my perspective of life changed after that.
And I think it's brilliant that he's trying to go to the international community and the international Asian community to try and raise the money.
At that point, it seemed it would be impossible to build it because, everyone thought it was not possible. And then to run it, which was a big challenge, to have free treatment, cancer-free treatment, no one believed that was possible. So that was my immediate goal. But as I embarked on that goal, my thoughts changed from building just one hospital into a welfare state.
When did that happen?
It was during the building of that hospital, because I ended up, after I gave that interview, this was the World Cup in '92. After that, the struggle I had to go through to build the hospital, I ended up on the streets. I ended up going into streets, schools, collecting money, because there was such huge amounts I had to collect. So it was the first interaction I actually had with people. In the streets, I was meeting people, I was going all over the place to collect money. And that was when my change started coming. And when the hospital opened, it gave me such great satisfaction that nothing in my cricketing career had given me the similar sort of satisfaction.
The Shaukat Khanum Memorial Trust Hospital and Cancer Research Centre finally opens its doors with a huge sense of pride and achievement for the people of Pakistan. Built on the principle of self-help and equal quality of treatment for all regardless of personal status, it is a fitting tribute to the beliefs of people and their faith in Imran.
My office was in the hospital, so I would see people coming in and getting better. So that changed me. And that's when I thought that why just one hospital? Why should I not try and build a welfare state?
Khan's vision to build a welfare state meant launching a political party in 1996. For 22 years, Imran's Justice Party, Tehreek-e-Insaf, struggled against the twin dynasties of PPP and PMLN. Despite overwhelming challenges, he finally won the national elections in July 2018.
मस्ती ये कायनात